Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Southwest Cyber Resilience Centre webinar 3, which is going to cover keeping your business safe online, and we'll take for the next 30 minutes or so. For those of you who haven't attended webinars 1 and 2, I'm Detective Inspector Ross Brown, and I'm Head of Cyber Innovation for the Southwest Cyber Resilience Centre. And for those of you who have attended 1 and 2, then I'm still Ross Brown and I'm still a Detective Inspector. So as I say, this is the third in the series of 4 webinars that we're putting together with a very kind collaboration with the National Cyber Security Centre, and Chris has again agreed to join us this morning and will be taking us through the subject areas. Don't forget, the last of the 3 webinars is tomorrow, same time, 10:30 to 11. So tomorrow, Thursday the 29th, and that will effectively bring together all of the other subject materials that we put out across the 3 webinars. So it's quite important, if you can make it, to attend that one, because there's going to be lots of stuff there that will, as I say, we'll pull together all the learning that has come out of the 3 previous webinars. So today, like the others, it's been structured to take you through the products that you get as a free core member of the Southwest Cyber Resilience Centre, and helping you to understand the products, the NCSC products that we give as part of our membership. So not only will it help you to understand the tools that we give you, but more importantly, it will help you to implement the guidance and make your business, whatever its size or sector, more cyber resilient. Quick plug, if I may, for those of you who haven't joined as a free core member, clearly it does what it says on the tin. It is free, and we send you out the National Cyber Security Centre products. And we also send out monthly updates on our newsletter, as well as obviously items that we put out if you follow us on LinkedIn as well. Thus trying to keep you up to date with emerging trends and make sure you're on top of things. I probably won't go through what we're going to cover today, because I know Chris will anyway. What about Chris? He is from the National Cyber Security Centre. And as a result of the work that he does there, this presentation will be wholly and solely using PowerPoint slides in terms of his own security. There will be an opportunity to ask questions, so if you can add them to the chat section, and then at the end of the presentation, I will ask them on your behalf of Chris, and obviously we'll cover those on air. So Chris, bit of a long preamble, but thank you so much for joining us again. I'm really most grateful. And if I pass over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ross. Good morning, and thank you to everybody who's joined us for this morning's webinar. As Ross mentioned, this is webinar 3 of 4 in the series. For those who have attended the previous 2, or at least one of those, thank you for coming back. And for those who this is the first time coming to one of these webinars, again, huge thank you for attending. Don't worry about missing any of the material in previous sessions. I'm going to cover the top lines from those webinars, so you're not missing out by having not been to those. My role in the NCSC is as the SME Engagement Officer. It's my job to work with local businesses to implement cybersecurity controls and processes to better secure ourselves online. I'm a big advocate that cybersecurity shouldn't be complex. It's something we can all do, something we should all be doing. This presentation is looking about the ways we can protect ourselves in the event of a cyber incident and how we can prepare should the worst case scenario happen. For those who aren't aware, then, the National Cyber Security Centre was established at the end of 2016, 2017, to bring together all parts of UK government on cybersecurity. We are the national technical authority when it comes to cybersecurity. And we are governed by that remit to help make the UK the safest place to live and work online. We provide support and guidance and advice to all parts of the UK. Everyone from individuals and families, the small and medium-sized organisations, public sector and cybersecurity professionals. A real wealth of knowledge and support we have within the organisation, and a huge reach out to industry and our public sector. So today's session is going to be looking at what a cyber incident means for your organisation and the products we have at the NCSC to better secure ourselves and prepare for a cyber attack. But first and foremost, it's important that we define what we mean by a cyber incident. Do we mean a cyber attack? Do we mean something, is it a criminal act? And we at the NCSC define this as an unauthorized access to an organization's IT systems. Now, this can be via two ways. This can be a malicious attack. So the ransomware, denial of service, malware infection, those those big events we see in the news time and again. Or it could be accidental. This could be damage from fire, flood, theft. It could be groundwork, which is cut a wire. It could be power outages. But these are still classified as cyber incidents. Really, this is anything which is going to take down our business operations and impact on our IT infrastructure. We need to be prepared in the event of a malicious or accidental cyber incident. And when we think about that malicious cyber attack, we have those threat actors who are out there to cause harm to UK cyberspace. And threat actors can take on many forms and guises, each of which will have their own techniques and procedures. And this can be everyone from the cyber criminal, the insider, hacktivist and terrorist, and the nation state. And given enough time and motivation and means, threat actors can penetrate our security and our firewalls. So our collective job then is to make it a hostile environment for threat actors to be successful in their acts. We need to make sure that not only do we have the correct measures in place to secure our organizations and our businesses, but we also have the correct processes in place to responding to a cyber incident from these threat actors. We can think of cyber attacks then in two forms, and this is a high-level generalization. We can go into a lot more detail here, but for the sake of this webinar this morning, we can really split cyber attacks into two categories. We have our non-targeted attacks, those which cyber criminals and threat actors are carrying out a mass attack, trying to reach as many organizations, individuals and businesses as possible. They're not necessarily going after a single target. And we've all been the victims of these sorts of events. We've all received fraudulent emails purporting to be from HMRC, Amazon, PayPal. We've often seen fake websites where if you click on these links, it'll take you to a web page which looks like HMRC. Unfortunately, this is a very real threat that we face. Individuals and businesses do often fall foul of these fake websites and give over sensitive information, including personal data and credit card information. And we've seen there ransomware information similar to the WannaCry attack on the NHS, and scanning, cyber criminals, threat actors just looking for a vulnerability out there to exploit. But then we have targeted attacks as well. We have these where cyber criminals and threat actors are crafting their attack, their threat vector, to go after a particular target or a particular network, and this takes that time for them to work on. And because we now live in such an interconnected world, the difference between non-targeted and targeted attacks is blending. It may be that you're not the victim of a targeted attack, but someone in your supply chain is a victim of that attack, and that consequently has a knock-on effect on your organization. So because of our interconnectivity within business, we need to make sure that we are prepared against both non-targeted and targeted cyber attacks. The Cybersecurity Breach Survey was recently published. This is a survey which is published every year. And this takes stock of the cyber landscape following those 12 months. And if you look at it as a whole, you can see how the cybersecurity trend is growing as we move towards a more technological era. But time and time again, the main cause for a cyber breach, a cyber incident, always stems from a phishing attack. This is individuals, colleagues receiving suspicious and malicious emails, click on a link, which then leads to that cyber incident, that breach in the organization. Which means that we really need to be aware of the impacts of phishing attacks, know how to spot them and how to mitigate the cause they have. Because phishing attacks have real life repercussions. Not too long ago, we had a local county council. An individual opened a malicious attachment on an email, which activated the malicious file to spread throughout the network, which eventually encrypted a lot of their devices and data. And as we can see at the bottom there's a $5 Bitcoin ransom for each affected device. So all files were encrypted, preventing access to the files and networks, those databases which are required for daily operations. The impacts then are huge. I mean, just by one individual clicking on an email, this impacted 300 users, nearly 50,000 files were encrypted by the time the shutdown was in place. In this example, the local county council had containment and mitigation plans that they could put into place, and they had their response recovery mechanisms. So they were able to respond to the incident in a timely fashion, but the impact was still felt for days, weeks, months, and even parts of the network were never really fully recovered until a few years afterwards. And in that short term, staff were left to work on pens, paper, telephones, going back to conventional means. Now, in this scenario, there was a positive outcome. They were able to respond and recover from it. But the question for delegates on the call on this webinar this morning is just think how long you may be able to work without your IT services. If your IT went down, you weren't able to access your emails, your files. Realistically, how long could your organization continue to work for before there was that impact felt and there was an impact on BAU? Because cyber attacks don't just last a few hours, a few days. These can take weeks, months, and in this scenario, years to fully recover from. So just keep that in the back of your mind when we're thinking about the impact of cybersecurity. How long could you last without your IT services? And the financial cost as well can be huge. The breach survey identified that the average cost of a breach was just over £8,000. Now, obviously, this increases as we go into business size and different sectors. And this is really that amalgamation of all organizations. Some organizations are going to fit it much higher, some are going to fit it much lower. It's really difficult to pin down the financial and long-term impacts of a cyber breach because they spread throughout the network. The ramifications and impacts are diverse and bring in different parts of the organization. No longer should we think about cyber attacks as being just an IT issue. We all have a collective responsibility when it comes to our cybersecurity. Just think about how if your organization went down, you'd have to bring in HR, legal, admin, the exec boards, that staff awareness, that shutdown. So the impact throughout the organization, not only financial, but also widely impacting. And a great survey from Ipsos Mori as well looked at, broke that down further. What is that financial impact of a cyber breach? Because not only do we have the short-term and the direct cost, the cyber ransom and extortion, the financial theft and staff response time, there's the long-term and indirect cost as well. There's the reputational damage, the supply chain attrition, and the loss of new and existing customers. And we can take that further as well, because not only does it impact on the reputation in business, it also impacts on staff members, staff not being able to do their work, that mental strain, that uncertainty of what's going on. We've seen case studies where this has really impacted on the mental well-being and health of an organization. So that not only does this really impact the organization as a whole, it really impacts on the staff and the people we have in place. Which is why when we think about the impacts a cyber risk can be organization, we really need to have a holistic approach when planning for a cyber instance. As I mentioned in the case of that local county council, it takes weeks, months, years to fully recover from those long-term indirect costs. And in fact, some organizations never fully recover from that cyber instance. Which means that it's important that not only do we have the correct controls in place and staff training, but we also have the correct response and recovery mechanisms. What I want to do now then is just first and foremost cover off the cyberware and the small business guide we have at the NCSC. I spoke about these at length in the previous sessions, but I just want to recap them for the benefit of those who weren't on those. The cyberware campaign was recently relaunched at the end of December, and this is the government's advice on how individuals and organizations can stay safe, secure online. Now, I'm a big champion of this. I absolutely love the cyberware campaign, not just for its simplicity, but these are steps and controls that we can all implement, not just in our professional lives, but our personal lives as well. So if there's one thing you take away from this session, or rather, if there's one action you take away, make sure you have these controls in place. Make sure we're having strong passwords, that we're turning on two-factor authentication, and we're updating our devices and turning on backup. And then we have the small business guide. Again, that is building that protection in place, that we're ensuring we have the correct controls and processes to prevent cyber attacks from occurring. And this is everything from backing up data, how we protect our organizations from malware, keeping our devices safe, and again, using passwords to protect this data, and most importantly there, how to avoid phishing attacks. As we saw from the breaches over this year, the need to prevent phishing attacks being successful is becoming more and more important as we go forward. So this really brings me to the bulk of this webinar and the main guidance we have in place. No longer should we consider cyber breaches as an if it happens, but rather when it happens. Many organizations and many business speakers I've spoken to think, why would a cyber criminal come after me? Why would they kind of attack my organization? As I said at the beginning, threat actors have non-target attacks where they're just out there to make a quick buck. They don't care who the entity is. They don't care about business or the sector. They just want to make that quick return. Which is why then all organizations need to have a business continuity plan which addresses the cybersecurity risk of that organization. As we see there, only 31% of businesses have those plans in place. So just consider if your own organization or if you're aware of those business continuity plans. What I want to do then for the next 5 minutes is just quickly run through those steps on the response recovery guide. For me, the most important takeaway there is preparing for an incident. We need to be prepared in the event of a cyber attack. And the response recovery guide does a great job of breaking this down and how do we prepare for that incident. This is about identifying first and foremost the critical systems and assets in place. We need to know what we're protecting, how critical it is to daily operations, and how we can better secure those. Because once we've identified the critical systems and assets, we can then look to prioritize the risk. What is the risk to those assets, to that network infrastructure? And once you know that risk, you can then manage that risk. But a lot of this is about that organizational buy-in. This is about making sure that senior managers and the exec board are aware of the cyber risk and that they put the cyber risk on the agenda for their organization. Just as you would for any other risk to business, cybersecurity needs to be front and center in everybody's mind when you consider the risk on the organization. And then you can make an incident plan. What do you do in the event of a cyber attack? If individual clicks on a malicious link and that impacts the wider network, you have that plan in place. You know what to do, you know how to respond to it, you know how to recover. And the response recovery guide sets out how organizations can create those incident plans. So the response recovery guide then moves quite nicely into on how to identify what's happening. This is about finding out if you are being or have been attacked, how to find out what's happened, and then how to stop the incident getting any worse. And the guidance there goes into much further detail on how you can identify those steps and what the next step is to stop it from getting any worse. Just a note there to say that finding out if you are being or have been attacked, many organizations will be the victims of a cyber incident or a cyber attack, but not realize for weeks, months, years that cyber criminals just sat there on their network, gathering information or carrying out reconnaissance. So it's not always a case of a ransomware where you see it straight away. Often at times, the cyber incident has happened long before it's first realized. So we need to be aware of how we are checking if we have been the victim of a cyber attack. And once we understand what's happening and we are putting in our measures to stop the incident from getting worse, we can then respond to it. And the response recovery guide takes us down two paths. Either if your IT is managed externally, then they have the responsibility and role to respond to that incident and fix it in a timely manner. So make sure you have the right people to help out and make sure you have their contact details in the event of an incident. But if you manage your own IT, and for many small organizations that will be the case, there are measures that you need to put in place to sanitize and repair infected devices and network. And this is everything from replacing the infected hardware, restoring those services that we've backed up, patching software and changing passwords. As we can see there, this can be a timely this can take a long time to fully to put those plans in place, and the cost as well can be quite high, especially when we start looking at replacing infected hardware and having to reinstall clean software and remove that. And for many small organizations who don't have that knowledge and experience within an organization, there may be that need to bring in a third party. So what is the cost there of bringing in that third entity? And then we need to report the incident to stakeholders, that reporting to law enforcement, keeping everyone informed, and getting legal advice if we feel that there has been a data breach. In the event of such breach, there is a requirement to contact the Information Commissioner's Office within 72 hours. But if any point you do feel that you are the victim of a cyber attack, Action Fraud should be your first point of call. You can reach them either on their website or on that phone number, or if your organisation is based in Scotland, you can contact Police Scotland on 101. And finally, we need to learn from that incident. What is the takeaway? Once we've responded and recovered and we've got systems back to normal, what are the lessons learned, what we can take away, and you can use that learning to better improve your cybersecurity posture and make better improvements for the future. In fact, this is where we see many businesses making the biggest improvements, is following a cyber incident. Don't wait until you've been the victim of a cyber incident. Learn from others' mistakes. Get it straight in there before this happens. And all the entire guide as well can be downloaded from our website, and I can look to share that with delegates on the call. Print it out, have a copy, so if your organisation is impacted, you have that guide in place which will walk you through the process in responding. So it's a good document to have in place should a cyber incident occur. I'm conscious of time. I was just in the next 2 minutes then just briefly outlining the exercise in the box we have, because what we now need to do is that once we have those incident plans and response mechanisms in place, we need to test it, which is why we have the exercise in the box toolkit, which is a free online tool from the NCSC, which helps all organizations find out how resilient we are and practice our responses in a safe environment. We don't need to wait until the cyber incident occurs. It offers a series of tabletop exercises, but we also have a simulation exercise and a suite of micro exercises for our smaller businesses. These exercises take no more than an hour to complete, but the learning from them is well worth that time spent investing in walking through the exercise, because there's some really good lessons learned that come out of those. What happens then is that from the discussion-based exercises, I believe there's 10 exercises in total, ranging from ransomware to phishing emails to malware. And these are run as a series of injects. So you are presented with the exercise, the first inject, and we have a series of discussion points which you and the team who are running this exercise can walk through to learn, to better understand where your organization currently is against that instance. You then are able to rate where you currently sit after each inject. So understand your current posture and where you may be able to make improvements. And once you've ran through each injects, you are then presented with that executive summary, which breaks down your answers and where you currently are. And it provides that related guidance where you identify that further improvements need to be made. The relevant guidance is in place to implement those controls. And this can be used as a benchmark for further improvements. Once you've run the exercise, you can then go away, implement those technical controls, and rerun the exercise to see how your cybersecurity posture has improved. That was a whistle-stop tour of all of our of the impacts of a cyber attack and the guidance we have in place to help you build your response and recovery mechanisms. I know we're coming up to the hour, so I'm happy to take any questions we have. And Ross, I'm in no rush, so I'm happy to stick around if people still have questions or if people want a run through of the exercise in the box. But thank you for your time, and I'll take questions.
Thanks, Chris. That was absolutely fascinating. Really, really good value. Thank you so much. That was great. At the moment, although I've got a hand just come up, Lauren has asked a question. What is the difference, if any, between a state-led threat actor, how a state-led threat actor behaves and a random cyber criminal behaves? Or is it that the targets and desired outcomes are different for each?
Oh, sorry, Ross.
You okay?
I think that's a question. And when we look at the threat actors from cyber criminals up until state actors, I think it really comes down to the experience and resources each of these entities have. Cyber criminals obviously will be limited by time and resource. They'll most likely be carrying out non-targeted attacks, or they may be going after one or two entities for various reasons. Whereas our state actors will be predominantly have a certain target or a nation in place, and they'll be going after certain organizations, certain states, and will have huge nation-backed resource and funding to carry out these attacks. Most likely we're looking at CNI, big organizations who are integral to that state's economy. But I think it's important to realize that regardless of the organization that those threat actors going after, we can all be the victims of a cyber attack. As I said, we don't necessarily have to be the intended target. We may be affected affected by just the consequences of those attacks. But it's very easy now for threat actors to carry out these attacks. I would say that anybody can be a threat actor. You can buy these services off the dark web. You don't even have to have the knowledge. So we need to make sure that we are preparing ourselves against these threat actors.
Okay, that's great. Now, I think Siobhan, you had your hand up. I don't know if you want to sort of unmute. I can't see anything in the chat column. No. Okay. Chris, Once again, thank you so much. Absolutely invaluable stuff there. And as I say, obviously the conclusion of the conclusion of the series of 4 seminars tomorrow. For those of you who haven't signed up, you can sign in via the LinkedIn page or my LinkedIn page. If you have any problems with that, just come through on the CRC email address, and we can help you sign up. So, thank you ever so much for all of those of you who attended. I hope you found it useful, and more useful stuff coming again tomorrow. So hopefully see you all tomorrow. Cheers. Bye-bye.